Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Booze Clues. You write them, I read them, and things get bizarre. Today, I wanted to start by showing you guys my new REM pod that I got for Christmas. I have her right here. Her name is Ramona. I want to get another one and name it Auntie Rem. Wizard of Oz fans, you guys will understand. You'll get it. And then I got, some cat balls here. Just like cat balls. So you have to press it for it to light up. They're so much fun to use when you're investigating. And then, of course, my EMF reader. That one's behind me. I can't really reach it right now. But some advice for if you have an EMF reader, definitely don't put it near your phone unless you really want to crash out about how cell phones are killing us all. Don't do that. I did that, so you don't have to. So those are some of my favorite things that I got for Christmas because my husband knows that I'm weird and I love that stuff. So instead of getting me a normal gift like an Apple Watch, I get ghost hunting equipment. And as you guys know, one of my other favorite things is the stranger kind, the Stranger Things. They have been killing it in these episodes. I can't wait to watch the finale tonight. Yes, I'm recording this on New Year's Eve because my husband's home. The kids are also home, so he's helping keep them busy. And then the kids have cousins coming over later, so I really wanted to just get this done because I was supposed to have this whole episode out by the end of December, and that didn't happen because life got busy, as I mentioned in this week's last episode. So it's like I have a whole other job that doesn't pay me or something. And you know what? I love it. I love this podcast so much. I love the community it's creating on TikTok and just, within itself. I love that people are sending in their stories and wanting to be a part of this little passion project of mine that I just decided to start on a whim. So I'm really, I'm really thankful that I have the community that I have. And I don't care that I don't get paid right now. Right now. Maybe one day. We'll see. I'm really just manifesting big things in 2026 and I can't wait to see where all of this goes. It's all about the journey, you know? Anyways, you guys came here for some stories. So let's get into some listener submissions. Our first one today, and don't worry, I skimmed these before reading them. So good job, Taylor. This first one subject line is We Heard Her by the River. Hey, Taylor, I hope you're having a blessed day in these wild times we live in. I figured I needed to write my story in before the world finally ends. And funny enough, on this night that I'm writing to you about, I actually thought my life would end. Ooh. I'm pretty sure you've heard the stories about La Llorona, especially being from Arizona yourself, where a lot of these stories seem to transpire. This is my encounter with the entity herself. By the way, I really like the podcast. I usually enjoy TikToks over long form stories because I'm a visual person and need short bursts of information. Yeah, me too. But she goes on to say, Your podcast always keeps me interested. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This happened the summer before my senior year of high school in 2009. Oh, and my name is Michelle. You can use it. She says, I grew up in southern Arizona, and if you live anywhere near the desert, you know summer nights hit different. Once the sun goes down, the heat does not, and everyone ends up by the water. Pools, canals, rivers, really anything to escape the heat. That night, it was me and four of my friends. We'd just finished junior year finals and had that reckless, we're almost adults energy and decided to go down to the river around midnight. It was one of those spots every local knows about. No lights, really no cell service once you got far enough down the dirt road, and absolutely no one should have been there that late. We parked the car and walked down with flashlights, laughing, talking about nothing really. I remember one of my friends joking about La Llorona, the weeping woman, and another one immediately telling her to shut up because you don't say that name near water. We laughed it off, but it planted something uneasy in my brain and in my stomach. The river was low, slow moving, and dark. The moonlight reflected just enough to where you could see the surface shifting. We sat on the bank, feet dangling in the water, music playing softly from someone's phone. That's when we heard it. At first, it sounded like wind, that long, hollow sound that echoes through trees. But then it changed. It became rhythmic, almost like sobbing, long, drawn out cries that rose and fell. One of my friends said, Is someone crying? We all went quiet. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. The sound carried from downstream, drifting toward us in waves. It sounded like a woman, older maybe, crying in a way that felt guttural and desperate. Not someone sniffling, someone wailing. Oh, I really hate that. That's when I would just decide to get up and probably, well, in high school, I probably would have gone and investigated. You know what? Who am I kidding? I'd still go figure out what that sound is. And then I'd probably run in fear. But what did you do? Let's see. We stood up, scanning the riverbanks with our flashlights. Nothing. No figures, just water and brush. Then we heard words. Not clear words, more like broken sounds, but enough that we could tell it was a voice trying to speak through sobs. It sounded like Spanish, though none of us could make out what she was saying. One of my friends whispered, "Nope, nope, nope." Oh, I can see a friend just standing up going, "Mm-mm, nope, nope, nope," and then running away. And that's when the crying shifted directions. Instead of saying downstream, it suddenly sounded like it was behind us. I swear to all that is holy, I felt every hair on my body stand up at once. The sound came from the trees, closer now, and it was louder, sharper, like whoever was crying was moving fast without making any other noise. No footsteps, though. No branches snapping, just the sound of wailing. Then we heard a scream. Uh, get out. Just leave at that point. It was piercing, high and anguished, and it echoed across the entire water. My ears rang, and one of my friends dropped her flashlight, and another started crying. Someone yelled, "Run!" We didn't argue. We ran back toward the car, tripping over rocks, slipping in the dirt, and the entire time, Taylor, the entire time, the crying followed us. Not behind us exactly, but all around us. Like it was everywhere. When we finally reached the car, we pulled in, slamming the doors, locking them immediately. As soon as the engine turned over, the crying stopped. Dead silence. No wind, no insects, nothing. We sat there shaking for a full minute before anyone spoke. On the drive home, none of us said the name, but we didn't have to. It's like we all collectively knew what happened. To this day, I will not go near that river after dark, or any river really. I am traumatized for life. Anyway, I hope you liked my spooky tale. I can't wait to hear if it makes it on the pod. If it does, I owe my eternal gratitude and will brag about it for pretty much the rest of my life. Stay away from bodies of water with dead people. Michelle from Tombstone. Thanks, Michelle from Tombstone. Also, just so you know, Michelle, a lot of ghost hunting happened in Tombstone back in the day for me. I love it there. I mean, it's so close, to where I grew up in Sierra Vista. So we would go to Bisbee, we would go to Tombstone. And are you talking about the San Pedro River? Because I had some creepy experiences there too. Growing up very close to it out in Hereford, Arizona, we would go out there and just hang out, by the river at nighttime. Very stupid. Like, why did we do that? But yeah, I have some creepy tales as well from there. So thank you for writing that in. That was very spooky. All right, listener submission number 2. This one's subject line is, he said his name was Richard Ramirez. Hello, fellow Ghouligans and true crime junkies. My name is Holly, and you can use it. I have some wild stories to share, but this one I think you will like the most. I really enjoy listening to your podcast. So far, other than maybe 2 cases, I really have not heard of the ones you've covered. I love a fresh case. Keep up the detective work. Thank you. This story is brought to you by the patients in a former hospital where I worked, unpaid and now traumatized. Here's a little backstory. I was getting my degree in criminology with a concentration in abnormal psychology, and as part of my program, I had to complete a clinical practicum, basically supervised fieldwork. And I had to do this at a psychiatric facility. I had to do that as well. I originally went to school to become a psychiatric physician's assistant, and then I did a few rounds and I was like, well, this is really depressing actually, and decided to become a teacher. But I definitely know the vibe of the type of workplace you're talking about, especially when you don't get paid. That field work almost is like, is this really worth it? Like, is this worth my sanity? I said the same thing about student teaching. It's just as traumatizing, but less actual violence. Well, Okay, we're not going to get into that. Anyways, she goes on to say, this took place in California, where I was assigned to a state psychiatric hospital that houses individuals with not guilty by reason of insanity and GRIs or deemed incompetent to stand trial. Some of the patients were there long term, others cycled in and out. One patient still haunts me. He introduced himself by saying, "Hi, I'm Richard." He told me very calmly that he was Richard Ramirez reincarnated. And the unsettling thing, even though I knew it wasn't true, is that he looked like him. Same sunken eyes, same sharp features. His teeth were awful. They were decayed and blackened. And he smelled constantly of sweat and something sour. Oh, no matter how often he showered. Um, those are the demons in him. He kept his hair long and greasy, framing his face the exact same way Richard would. But here's the thing, I knew he was lying because he was born in 1988, which already didn't make sense. Ramirez didn't die until 2013, so reincarnation didn't exactly line up timeline wise. When I pointed this out gently to him one day, saying, "Oh, usually reincarnation happens after someone passes. Richard Ramirez is still alive." He smiled and said, "Time works differently for people like me." Oh, I don't like that at all. Oh, I hate that so much. Now, this guy, he never actually killed anyone, which is why he was never in prison. But he terrified the staff and he terrified me, especially as a young female. He talked openly about wanting to hurt women, about stalking them, about watching houses, about what he would do if given the chance. He wrote about it obsessively, pages and pages of violent fantasies, all signed Richard. Ugh, really hating this for you. How old were you? You couldn't have been more than 19, 20 if you're doing this for a practicum. That's terrifying. That's horrible. She goes on to say that he laughed when he talked about it, like it was funny. The reason he stayed hospitalized instead of being released again was because he eventually assaulted a staff member. Ooh, you can't do that. She goes on to say that he stabbed them in the arm with a pen during a session. Oh my God. Okay. She says afterward he laughed and said, "That wasn't me. That was the devil working through me." Listen, buddy, I don't think the devil would work through you with a pen. Okay. Devil actually told me the other day, we had a conversation. He said, "I don't want this guy. Why is everyone always blaming the devil? Just take accountability for your actions." I remember walking to my car after one of my shifts and realizing my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't unlock the door. Oh, that's really scary. I'm sorry you had to deal with a patient like that. But wow, how interesting. She goes on to say again, he never killed anyone, not even to this day that I know of. But I believe fully that if he'd been released, he would have. Anywho, happy ending. I'm now working as a forensic case manager, and I absolutely love what I do. It's fascinating, meaningful, and honestly, I still think about that man sometimes. Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't. I feel that is forever engraved into your memory, not something you easily forget. She says, "Anyway, thanks for reading this if you happen to. I have plenty of other stories about weird encounters that I would love to write in." Oh, yes. Please, please do. Please write them in. Stay spooky. Holly from Burbank. Yes, Holly. Yes, write them in, especially if you have more stories about that guy or any just like other bizarre stories that happened while you were in that facility or even now, because you said you're a what? You're a forensic case manager. I got to know more about that. You got to write in. Give me more stories. I love it. Thank you, Holly, for writing in. All right, let's read the next one. Here is submission number 3. And this one subject line is The Witch Next Door. Hi there. I'm not really good at writing or intros, so I'm just going to get into it. Fair enough. She says, "My name is Rachel and I'm from Michigan. And yes, you can use my name. And when I was a kid, I was convinced that my neighbor was a witch. Now, I didn't think she was a fun witch. I thought she was a bad witch." That reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? She lived alone in a dark house at the end of our street and never decorated for the holidays. Oh, that's interesting. You would think Halloween was like her jam, right? Like her time. She says on Halloween, she'd sit on her porch and tell kids weird things instead of giving out candy. What did she tell them? One of my neighborhood friends once said, "She's going to hex you." I avoided her house at all costs, at all times. And this woman made predictions constantly, not vague stuff, very specific things. And she liked watching people squirm when she said them. I mean, listen, if I was a witch, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd probably enjoy watching people's reactions to what I said if I could like predict the future. I told you guys, I'm a little psychic, okay? And when I say things and then it happens, people are like, "Whoa, that's crazy." Honestly, if I was a real witch and I was able to predict things like consistently and constantly, I would love to see the reaction on people's faces. That would give me pure joy. She says one day when I was about 12, she told my parents that my grandmother was going to have a stroke. Oh, I don't like that. Don't like that prediction. My parents brushed it off completely, but I didn't. This was the early 2010s, and I went home and Googled signs of a stroke and what to do if someone was having a stroke. I memorized it all: the face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, slurring. And about 2 weeks later, my grandmother was visiting. We were all at the dinner table having a nice conversation. She went to take a bite of her meatloaf. She was chewing it, and then her body did a little jerk. My father asked if she was okay, and then when she tried to respond, her words started slurring. We couldn't understand what she was saying. It all sounded kind of like gibberish. And that's when I instantly knew what was happening. I remembered what our neighbor had said, and I ran to the phone and dialed 911. And here's the part that gives me chills. I already have chills, but let's keep going. That same evening, right as it was happening, the witch was on her nightly walk. I saw her out front of our house and she stopped. Then she pulled something out of her pocket, kneeled down, and started doing what I can only assume was a spell on our front lawn. My mother ran out because she saw her too, and she was going to yell at her. And then the witch looked up and said, "It's protection," and then just kneeled back down. My grandmother ended up making a full recovery. And after that, everything changed. The witch became part of our family. She came over for holidays, dinners, birthdays. It seems like she was casting a protection spell over our home during the time that my grandmother was having her stroke. My mother had a look of shock on her face. She covered her mouth and then she hugged this neighbor. And this wasn't the only time that she predicted something. After we all became friends, she predicted a car accident once and then begged my dad not to leave at his usual time for work. He waited about 20 minutes and then decided, okay, that's enough time. I can't be late for work. And he left. Come to find out, there was a detour because that morning there had been a fatal car accident on his normal route to work. This lady was never wrong, and I will never doubt her again. I don't know if she still lives there. It's been quite some time since I've heard from her. My parents ended up moving to a different neighborhood and we lost touch. I hope she's alive and well. Thanks for reading this if you do. Rachel from Muskogee. P.S. I binged your entire podcast after finding you on TikTok last month. You are a great storyteller. Oh, thank you, Rachel. That is a wild story. Oh my gosh. So you have a witch neighbor growing up and everyone's scared of her, but then she helps your family by predicting something traumatic that'll happen to your grandmother and she becomes friends with your family. That is a wild tale. And honestly, really cool. I want a witch neighbor. Where can I find one of those? All right, let's move on to our last tale of the day. The subject line of this one is "Something followed us at the lake." Another water story. All right, here we go. Hi, Taylor. My name is also Taylor, and you can absolutely use it. I love the podcast. A friend told me about you in September. Shout out to Bobby. What up, Bobby? Thank you for bringing us another listener. And she goes on to say, I have been a loyal follower ever since. Well, thank you. She says, I'm from Ohio, Appalachia territory. And before anyone asks, yes, weird things definitely happen here. Oh, I'm so excited. This one happened at a lake near where my family has gone for generations. It was me, my brother, my cousins, and a few friends. A late afternoon turning into dusk. We were fishing, swimming, drinking beers, not us, the adults. I was 11. Normal stuff. It wasn't long until my parents were saying that we needed to head back home. We weren't camping, we were just kind of hanging out for the evening. As we were all walking along the lake, getting further and further away from our parents, we heard our names. We thought our parents were calling us back, but we turned around and saw they weren't even looking at us. They were busy packing up the truck. So we walked a little further because we were brats and we never listened to when we were supposed to. So instead of walking back and packing up with the rest of the family, we continued on our journey. And again, we heard our names. First, my cousin heard his name, and he thought I was messing with him. My brother heard his name as well, and he thought I said it. And then he looked at my cousin and thought he said it. Both of us said it wasn't us. Then we heard my voice saying my brother's name, but it wasn't coming from me. It was coming from everywhere. I wasn't speaking. We stopped and looked around, trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. We thought maybe one of our cousins had gone off the trail and started messing with us, but we didn't see anybody. We walked a little bit further because we're dumb, and we realized something was following us along the shoreline. We could hear movement, but we didn't see anything. Every time we stopped, the noise stopped too. My brother laughed it off until it said his name again. It only said my cousin's name once, and it only said my name once, but it kept repeating my brother's name. Isaac, Isaac, Isaac. After the third time of hearing it, we all looked at each other and booked it down toward our parents. My brother, who never really cried because he was one of those I don't cry macho tough guys, hello, toxic masculinity, he was pale with tears streaming down his face. He told my parents what happened, and my parents really don't mess around with that kind of stuff. My uncle looked at him and said, "Don't turn around, everyone in the truck." So we all piled in, my parents and my aunts all finishing to pack up the truck as we climbed in, shaking in our boots. We left immediately. On the drive home, none of the kids spoke. We all just kind of huddled together and tried to get some sleep. Later that night, my cousin texted me because, yes, this was during the time of cell phones. He said, "Did anyone else feel like it wanted us to follow it?" And after thinking about it, he was right. I felt this strange urge to follow where the noise was coming from. Thankfully, I grew up in Appalachia territory where you learn that you don't follow anything, even if it says your name. I still think about that evening to this day. I bring it up to my brother all the time and to my cousin. My uncle is adamant that we had a skinwalker experience, and we fully believe so too. After this experience, anytime we went out with our family, hiking or near lakes, because yes, we still did that stuff, we were very careful not to wander too far and to be extremely cautious if we heard anything out of the ordinary. Well, that's my scary story. I hope it graces the ears of your listeners and gives me the external validation I keep telling myself I don't need. Taylor from Ohio. P.S. Have you ever heard of Helltown, Ohio? Because it's not far from where this happened, and I think you should look into it. Taylor, I actually have heard a little bit about Helltown, Ohio. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know that there's a lot of lore there, that it's like a cursed town, right? I think it's a cursed town. So I will look further into that and maybe do an episode on it. Ohio. So I was telling my husband the other day when I'm getting ready for the day or even in the evening, getting ready for bed, I like to listen to podcasts or watch like YouTube videos to get ideas for episodes. And I found this YouTube video and it was like 15 most haunted places, in America. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, I bet I could tell you just off the top of my head, like the top 5 that are going to be here. Listen, I knew probably like 6 of them, and the rest, I kid you not, the rest of the video was all Ohio. I was like, how is Ohio this haunted? Like, Ohio's got some crazy shit going on. So I will definitely look into Helltown, and I'll look into any other Ohio places too, because it seems like there's a lot of spooky shit happening there. Well, guys, that's it. Thank you again so much for writing in your stories. I really do love combing through them and hearing all of your wild tales. You guys are all the best, and I love you so much. Thank you for listening. I hope you have an amazing start to your new year. Definitely go near haunted bodies of water, abandoned buildings. Go check it all out. Whatever you want. I won't stop you, but be safe. I'm actually scouting some haunted locations right now to go use my equipment. And one day, maybe I will even be able to bring you all some video footage of my adventures. But until then, may the hauntings be ever in your favor. And remember to trust your lizard brain. Until next time, goodbye.